Hello and welcome to episode 94 on the Everyday Joy podcast. I'm your host, Joy Ravella, and I want to read out this amazing 5-star review from MTYC12. They say, amazing. I just listened to the first one with my younger sister. She's 9 years old. I'm 12 years old, and I loved it. It had such good advice. It had the presence of truth in every word they said. Me and my sister can't wait to listen to all the other ones. I would give this a 10 out of 10 if I could. I would recommend this to everyone of all ages. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. I just love it that you as sisters are listening together, that you have such a hunger for God's word, and it just is so beautiful that you gave a 5-star review. And in my heart, I will keep that 10-star review. Thank you so much. And hey, for those of you who are listening into this podcast, you can also leave a 5-star written review. But I also want to say that, wow, how incredible is it that we've got people from all walks of life, all ages, just loving and listening to this podcast and really being a part of the community. That's what it's all about at the end of the day. So let's get into today's Bible verse.
In your anger, do not sin. Do not let the sun go down while you are still angry. That's found in Ephesians chapter 4, verse 26 in the NIV Bible.
Jo, so good to have you again here in studio. Now, you are a fan favourite here on the Everyday Joy podcast. For those of you who haven't had a chance to listen to your previous episodes with me, a little bit about yourself, who you are, those sorts of things.
I'm Jo Chapman. I'm 53, a solo parent of 11 years with 4 children from 22 down to 15, and I am just loving life. I love the adventures of God. I also am half of the Drive show, the Cam and Jo show on 89.9 The Light.
Well, Jo, thank you so much for being here today, and Jo will be with us all throughout this week, and today focusing on Ephesians 4:26. In your anger, do not sin. Do not let the sun go down while you are still angry. Jo, what are your first impressions of this one?
I think it's a really practical word to live by. It basically tells you, when you're angry, don't sin, don't do things that you regret, and don't let a day go past, really. That's the sun going down. Don't let the day go past without, really resolving it. And to me, it's not about going to bed angry or about you having to fix it, but what do you do when somebody else won't let you go to bed with a resolved issue, when it's unresolved and out of your control?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think for many years, I felt like you had to have everything tied up in a nice, pretty bow before you went to bed. And I would be, when I used to have disagreements with my younger sister, knocking on her door at like 11:30, being like, don't go to sleep. We need to sort this out.
Yep.
And she was not ready to speak about it. My sister and I are quite different. So a big thing that I have is I want to talk things out. I want to solve things. I want to get to the other side. Whereas my younger sister takes time and space to process. And so this verse I found easy with people who are like me, who like to hash it out, but a bit trickier with those who need a bit more time and space, I guess.
Exactly. And I am like you, Joy. I used to feel quite stressed when people wouldn't resolve it with me, and the anxiety levels would rise, and sort of, frustration would rise, and intensity in me wanting to fix it would rise. So yeah, it depends on personality. So this is one of those scriptures that is great, but what do you do if you can't control the other person?
Yeah, and we're going to get into that a little bit later. But Jo, what does this verse tell you about who God is or what matters to him?
The first thing that jumps out to me is that it's okay to be angry. Where it's okay to be angry. Just don't sin while you're angry.
Yeah.
And so I think that when you think about the range of emotions, God got angry, turned over the tables in the marketplace. Being angry is okay, but it's what you do with your anger that is more of a position of God. So, yeah.
I think that's so true, because sometimes we can think that being angry is bad, but it's an expression of emotion. But the key, as you said, Jo, is don't sin while you're angry. If you're angry, go for a walk. If you're angry, pray about it. If you get angry, there's so many other ways to deal with it. Just don't put action when you're angry, because often it doesn't quite work out. How has this verse, Jo, come alive in your life?
This is a really great verse for explaining something about me. And although it says, don't let the sun go down while you're angry, don't let the day go past without resolving something. I have always been a child, especially in my growing up years and young adult, where I would accelerate my anxiety and need to resolve something if the other person wouldn't. And I've had to come and learn about that mostly because I felt when I was, wanting to sort something out with my husband at the time or a sister or a friend, that if they wouldn't allow us to talk about it by the end of the day and resolve it, I felt very muzzled and very, tense and captured in a sense of not being able to speak and not being able to sort something out. And it was a horrible feeling. But what I realised was that I'm being captured by somebody else's silence and having a sense of powerlessness, and that's not really where it's at. So I don't need to be caught in a prison of someone's silence because I can't speak. What do I do when another person won't resolve it? Me accelerating the volume or, pestering the person to come and speak to me only makes them withdraw into further silence, and you get in a cycle of poor communication. That's what happened very often in my marriage, but I've learnt since then.
And I think that also extends to messages, emails, face-to-face conversations. It's when, like you said, those key words, when you feel powerless, when you feel muzzled, when you feel held captive, you want to speak more, you get more stressed, you want to sort things out because all of a sudden you feel like things are being taken away from you, and you just think, if I can just solve this, if I can just get them to understand, if I can just get them to agree, everything will be fine again. And so we're chasing that peace, we're chasing that status quo, we're chasing that resolution, going after another human who's hurt, when actually maybe we need to wind it back, pause, stop, and invite God into it, which is really hard to do.
It is. And you know what? We've got to stop and say, well, why am I feeling this way? Sometimes it's a control issue. I can't fix this. Maybe the perfectionist personality is, I need to fix this. It's learning to sit in an unresolved situation. And that's what I've had to come to learn, that I can do all that I can to resolve things or be in a position of good communication before the day's ending. But I can't make the other person do the same thing. I can't make the person I'm angry with or had a disagreement with think the same way as me or want to resolve it in the same way as me. And I've learned a few things. Sometimes there's a battle going on with control. Like I am wanting to control the situation in that it's resolved. And sometimes the quiet people who don't want to resolve it can be passive aggressive as well. They actually are holding you captive if you let them to the upset because they refuse to resolve it or refuse to talk to you. But if you take God into account and say, God, what is happening here? And how can you direct me? How can I see the situation from your perspective? How can I see what's going on here? And when you resolve it with God, that's resolving something before the sun goes down. It doesn't have to be the other person. Don't let the sun go down while you're still angry. Who says that's with the other person? I think it's more with God. Bring God into your day, and before your day has come to the end, unpack with God the things that you're feeling. They might not all be resolved, but the conversation you're looking for, the conversation that you're actually craving, isn't with the other person. It's with a God who knows you and the other person, who can bring all things together, resolve things in a way that you couldn't hope or imagine. So before the end of each day, resolve what you need to with a God who is powerful when you are powerless.
I do not know about you, but that was a truth bomb. And I just love the new perspective that I personally received. I always thought this verse just applied to you and that person that you were upset with. But what if resolution is more than just that? What if resolution and going to bed without being angry, going to bed without resolving it, has more to do with your state of heart and your posture before God? Because there will be times when the person that you're upset with, and maybe perhaps they're upset with you, you can't actually hash it out before you go to bed. But you can always hash it out with God. You can always ask Him for forgiveness, or you can ask Him for ideas. You can say to Him, I really messed up. God, help me. You can create that sense of resolution with God, because at the end of the day, I think if you skip that step, if you leave God out of it, well, then you'll never truly have the fullness of restoration that comes with inviting God into the process. Ephesians chapter 4:26. In your anger, do not sin. Don't let the sun go down while you are still angry. I hope today's conversation opened your eyes to a new way, perhaps, to look at this verse, and hopefully gives you a bit of hope and joy as you are facing this situation, because it never feels good going to bed angry. So here's hoping you can go to bed knowing that if you've solved it with God, if you in your heart are good and right with Him, that's good enough for now. That's Ephesians chapter 4, verse 26. I look forward to catching up again tomorrow on the Everyday Joy podcast.